I used to get so excited when we'd have family time with my aunts, uncles, and cousins. Each member of my family was like a celebrity to me. I was enamored with my Aunt Shelley, amazed with my Aunt Terry, and obsessed with my Aunt Janice, my mom's 3 older sisters. Each one brought a different kind of magic with them. My Aunt Shelley was the gifter, Aunt Terry was the storyteller, and Aunt Janice was the attention giver. They were perfect in my eyes. My Aunt Janice was who I saw most often. She felt like a second mom. Every time she made me something to eat, she took a bite. She said it was to make sure it wasn't poisonous, and I believed her until I was 5. She would take me on long walks, always with a destination. Sometimes a park, most times a store. I admired her so much that when I was almost 2, I asked the man at the store to put my bottle in a paper bag. I wanted to emulate the 40-ounce Budweiser she'd always grab for herself. When my Aunt Shelley came, it seemed like we were always going shopping. I'd always get new clothes, and we'd go on a huge grocery run. She'd let me buy name-brand cereal and loaded me up with snacks. As a kid, I didn't realize she was taking us shopping because we were so poor. I just thought she was the aunt that spoiled me, the one who let me get my way, since she freely gave me all of the stuff my mom constantly said no to. My Aunt Terry was the one I rarely saw, so she was mysterious to me. She always had a smile and hug on hand, and she would happily answer any questions I had about anything. But she was a busy woman and had a lot on her plate. We once lived in the same city as her for a summer, and even being at her house all the time, I rarely spent any time with her. She was like an extra special guest I was always so happy to see. My mom and Aunt Janice were more carefree, whereas my Aunt Shelley and Terry were very practical. It was apparent at a young age that they always paired off during family events or vacations. There was no negativity or division that I could sense between the 4, but it just seemed like it was natural for the sisters to be closer to their buddy. Being raised as mostly an only child, as my step-siblings rarely lived in the same dwelling as me, I was always a bit confounded and curious as to how these bonds formed when they were younger. Terry was the oldest. 2 years later, my grandparents welcomed Janice. Another 2 years went by before Shelley came along. Then my mom surprised everyone 13 years after Shelley was born. By the time my mom was 6, all of her sisters had moved out, and she was raised as an only child herself. She became an aunt when she was 7, after Terry gave birth to my cousin Steve. My mom always told me she felt like the black sheep, the accident none of her sisters really wanted, but all loved and doted on. I also had aunts from my dad and step-parents, but they weren't as active in my life continuously. Except for my stepdad's sister, my Aunt Babs. She was a hard-working farmer who lived on acres of land out in Chowchilla with her husband Nick. Uncle Nick was a jokester and had me believing the hamburger helper they were feeding me was actually squirrel-tail goulash the first time I visited them. Being there was fun. My cousins would take me out on adventures on their property. My dad's sister, Clarice, would become a huge part of my adult life. I hadn't remembered her from my childhood, but when we reconnected as adults, she made me feel immediately welcomed. I spent many visits with them before a falling out with one of my cousins caused me to distance myself from them. I miss her, but it feels best for their family if I stay at a healthy distance and just follow their lives on social media. But those few years of her adoring nature really helped fill a hole that I didn't know was there. I miss that. I've been afraid to talk too in depth about my aunts. My family is a very that's not anyone's business type of family. But I'm not sure how to tell my own story without expressing my feelings about them. My whole life it was ingrained in me that what others don't know is better for me. It was a taught behavior that left a gigantic impact on how I dealt with the world. It was the beginning of my developing improvisational coping techniques to keep my truth away from others' knowledge. So with the risk of upsetting my family, the rest of this essay comes from a place of letting go, not talking shit. My Aunt Janice spent most of my life in and out of prison. She was a heroin addict who'd always get caught with drugs on her while she was on parole. It was a cycle I became very accustomed to. They hid her absences from me pretty impressively until I became too old to believe their bullshit. Finally, it became clear to me that my aunt wasn't actually a criminal at all. She was an addict who was constantly beleaguered by a system that was not designed to help people recover. My mom saw this catch-22 in the system and would do anything she could to help my Aunt Janice. When she wasn't in prison, she would spend a lot of time living with us. She was always making me food, giving me tons of kisses, playing games, and engaging me at my level. She was, and still is, a beacon of love in an ever-growing desolate world. Whenever she'd leave again, a little piece of my heart went with her. I never wrote to her or visited her in prison. My mom wouldn't allow it. But I knew she'd eventually turn up again. And again she would. Most times it was a surprise for me. I'd just walk in the door and she was sitting there laughing with my mom. Other times were more serious, when I felt confused and helpless. Other times were more serious, where I felt confused and helpless. Once I came home from school and immediately heard my mom scream at me from my room. She was sitting there with Aunt Janice, who had a giant abscess that had ruptured on her arm. My mom had me put on gloves and hold the wound open while she used a plastic syringe to draw out all the pus. I didn't know how to react around her for a few days, as I had never seen this side of her life. My Aunt Shelley always seemed worried about me, always wanted to make sure I was fed with plenty of clothes. My mom always called her rich, and I believed it. I felt spoiled in a different way by Shelley than by Janice. With Shelley, it was more about the practical. It was about what made the most common sense, whereas Janice was all about affection and fun. But my mom was intimidated by Aunt Shelley and made me promise not to open up too much about my home life, which immediately bred into me the idea that lying was a-okay. I always noticed how my mom would frantically clean up before a visit from Aunt Shelley. We'd wear clothes we usually never wore. We were agreeable. We didn't speak back. We minded all our manners. We said thank you and please. She worried so much about what Shelley thought of her. And after each visit, my mom would always be depressed and distant. The shame she hid from Shelley would come out tenfold once she left. I always felt so guilty. Like maybe I hadn't been a good enough boy while she was visiting. My mom struggled with her relationship with her sisters, and when she died, it felt like I suddenly took on all the baggage they had with her. I've struggled to maintain any sort of active relationship with any of them in my adult years, but not without trying. With Shelley and Terry, they saw me as someone who was just a Carolyn Jr., a screw-up who'd follow her same path. Even though I was still in high school when my mom died, I became homeless over asking either of them for the type of help my mom always did. I didn't want money to be the same reason I feared them, like it was for her. So I never asked them for anything major ever again. My Aunt Janice and I will chat every so often. I have zero ill feelings toward her. I empathize with her. When we talk about my mom mostly. I remind her of my mom. I don't hold any negativity toward Shelley and Terry either. I know I'll never measure up to their expectations, so I've stopped even worrying about it. I can love them with all my heart and still keep my distance. Why should either party have to deal with the other if we'll each just leave the interaction disappointed. My family splintered when my grandmother died, and with the exception of my cousins Jamie and Erica, the rest evaporated after my mom's death. I hated not having any places to go on holidays besides friends' houses with their families. I can count on one hand how many holidays I've spent with my own family since my mom died. But I'm finally content with who I am and how I can't change to make them happy. They'll always be a part of who I am. I've just accepted that I'll never be who they think I should be. And I'm way okay with that.